Supplying effective drugs within Africa is a challenge. Regina and Angela desperately hope to find treatments for their suffering daughters.
Children are one of the most vulnerable populations to malaria. As you know, in many parts of Africa, people do not easily access drugs in the public sector. They would have to walk miles before they find a public structure.
One of the biggest problems in Africa is lack of health education, which can lead to a lack of malaria diagnosis and treatment. Every year, the continent loses an estimated $12 billion in gross domestic product due directly to the disease.
What we are facing is not just a lack of drugs, not just a lack of nurses, a lack of an efficient distribution system. It is fundamental in the health education, the education overall, but the health education of people, and then make sure people get access. Drugs are available, but they need to reach the patients.
With inconsistent availability of treatments, mothers like Regina and Angela can only wait and hope for the arrival of effective drugs for their daughters.
It is essential that children are helped being prevented from getting malaria by having them sleep under bed nets. If a child is sick, they would need the appropriate drug that is adapted to the body weight of the child.
Through the continuing efforts of people on 4 continents, some patients are lucky. Mothers Angela and Regina finally receive much-needed treatments for their daughters.
That's indeed moving. Strong winds and extremely dry conditions and wildfires wreaking havoc on the southern coast of the United States. Mandatory evacuations have already been ordered in South California, where 11 homes are lost to infernos and thousands more are threatened. While rain is expected, heavy dry winds are driving the fire uncontrolled amidst ongoing evacuations.
Evacuations Friday afternoon in Ventura County, that's near Los Angeles. We learn more from CNN's Kyung La.
An uphill battle, scorching heat, swirling winds, devouring brush shriveled by drought and anything else in its path. Another terrifying day for homeowners, watching fire lick up canyons and perilously close to houses. The out-of-control blazes march closer and closer to Pamela Campbell. She's lived through this many times in her 26 years here.
More trash barrels filled with water.
Defending her home from wildfire with garden hoses and mops. She'll do it again for this one if she has to.
And you hit the hot spot, and you're not throwing buckets down and wasting your auxiliary water.
Ventura County Fire Captain Scott DeTore says crews were ready but stunned by the ferocity of this early blaze.
Captain, we should be having this conversation in October. Why are we having it in May?
I wish I could tell you. California, as we know, is known to have droughts. My understanding is, and I'm not exact on this number, but we only received 1/4 of the snowfall that we normally get. So it is a huge concern this year. You're absolutely right. This shouldn't happen for another 5 months. We are hoping this is not a forbearance of what's to come.
The weather, say NASA climatologists, is simply upside down. From California to May snow in the Midwest.
How would you characterize the weather nationally?
Well, nationally, this is a very schizophrenic winter and spring. In the Northeast, it's the never-ending winter. It's still snowing, and it's flooding. Whereas in the Southwest, we haven't had decent rainfall since January 1st.
Does that alarm you as a climatologist looking at this schizophrenic weather pattern?
We have seen conditions like this in the past, but what is really different here in the West is over the last 50 years, the population of the American Southwest has quadrupled. And so there are more and more housing developments, there are more and more communities in harm's way.
Are you exhausted thinking about your summer?
Yes, I think we all are going to be.
We now take our second break. It's time now for the weather forecast, courtesy of the Central Forecast Office.
The source assures us of a continuous flow, and from there, everything follows. And for those of us who know what the River Gambia stands for, understanding its sustainability in all aspects of life is easily confirmed. The River Gambia provides nutritious delicacies as food, while it provides its wildlife a balanced ecosystem. This river, as a sanctuary, is committed to its inhabitants' needs without season. And as you travel along, all these values are replicated in one company, Elton, just like the River Gambia, leads in its commitment to values that matter most. Elton, championing the vision for a new generation. And before we go, a reminder of our headlines once again. Renowned Gambian youth groups have gathered for a local consultation seminar to look beyond the 2015 UN Millennium Development Goals. Health personnel at the Jammeh Foundation for Peace Hospital have been expressing satisfaction with the progress made in attaining the MDGs barely 2 years before the set targets. A moving documentary on fighting malaria in Africa examines the colossal sums of money spent on fighting the continent's #1 killer disease. And strong winds are continuing to wreak havoc in southern coast of the United States. That brings us to the end of this edition of the news. Thanks for the pleasure of your company. Stay tuned and enjoy GRTS. Until then, I am Abubakar Dabo.